Hi everyone, I am Bo, and welcome to my channel. Since it's my first video, I thought it would be appropriate to talk about how I found out that I'm a medium. I was in my mid-40s, and it came as a surprise because of the way that it happened. I was driving along one day, going to meet an acquaintance, and as I was making a turn, I received this thought: you're going to deliver a message to Dennis. Dennis was the acquaintance I was going to meet. And I thought, that's strange because I don't have a message for Dennis. And then the message came and it was hello. And I just thought, okay, I can do that. And then, but the message continued. And after that was moja droga ja cię kocham, which we'll talk more about that later. And then I got a sort of feeling to look up at a tree as I was passing, like I guess a live oak type tree. And it seemed almost like something was tied or tangled in the branches. I got the feeling that just the idea was something about a rope in a tree. And then I got a visual of a green street sign like you would see at the end of a street, and it said Dolores Street. And then I came to another major intersection where there was a red light. I stopped. I didn't receive any more message, and I thought that was very weird. I didn't know what was happening to me. So I got to the parking lot of the Savannah where I was meeting my acquaintance. We were going hiking, and he was already there, and I just kept having this feeling about this message. But being a teacher at the time, I had Post-it notes, so I wrote the message on Post-it notes, put it in my glove compartment, and went out, met Dennis. We went on our hike. We weren't doing much talking because, you don't want to scare off any wildlife you might see or something. But I did just keep hearing in my head, Denny, 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 Denny. And his name was Dennis again. So I did break the silence to ask him, hey, did anyone ever call you Dennis? And he did say, yeah, when he was a kid, certain members of his family or whatever. And that was about all that was said about it. And we continued and finished our hike, and that was it. And so I knew that I'd had a really strange experience, and I was going through a rough time already because my mother had died not too long before that, and I was having a really hard time with grief. And so I was wondering, like, yeah, this is kind of strange. It was almost like, what, am I crazy? Anyway, so it was several days later that I was sitting in my front yard on a lawn chair reading in the sun, and I happened to be reading a book by Alison Dubois, who is a medium. And there was an old TV show at one point called Medium, and the show was, I think, based on her life or something along those lines. Anyway, my friend and neighbor, who was also a veterinarian, had loaned me the book because there was a story in the book about someone getting a visitation from their deceased father, and through that, and remembering about him being released from his suffering, understanding it was okay to let their cat go, who was very sick. And I had a very sick cat at the time, and that's why she loaned me the book. And there was another interesting story. There were several interesting ones, but one noteworthy one was a story that happened to mention that spirits tend to visit, according to this medium, Alison Dubois, that spirits tend to visit people when they're sad, but when they're like happy and celebrating, they don't want to come around and have you feel them and then be saddened by missing them. but it's at times when you're really sad that they might be there with you. Anyway, so I was reading this book, sitting in the sun, and realized I had been reading the same paragraph over and over with zero comprehension, and realized that it was because someone was yelling at me in my head, deliver that message to Dennis already, over and over. And so I finally just said, what, I might be going crazy, but I'm just going to do it. And I said, okay, already. I put the book down. I went in the house. I called him. I left a voicemail. And I said, hey, I have a message for you. The message is, hello, moja droga ja cię kocham. Something about a rope in a tree and Dolores. And give me a call. And so I did not hear from my friend for several days. And so I thought, okay, yeah, I'm losing it. I'm going crazy, and he has like, an audio recording of evidence. Anyway, so about, I think it was like 10 days later, he called me back, and to show you how long ago this was, his excuse for how long he had waited was he was out of minutes and didn't want to go over. And so he said, oh, hey, thanks for the message. I didn't know you were a psychic. And I said, hey, I'm not. Would you care to tell me anything about that message? What was that? And he said, well, hello was just hello. And then moja droga ja cię kocham. At first, I thought that was my baba, because she was the one who was Polish. And then something about a rope in a tree. I was tying ropes to branches in a tree that day. Can they see what we're doing? And I said, Dennis, I have no idea. I don't know anything about this. And he said, and then, well, Dolores, that was my mom's name. I said, wow. And he said, you know what was really weird about it? I said, what was that? And he said, you remember the date? And at the time I did, exactly, I think it was June 3rd. And I said the exact date back to him. And he said, yeah, that's the anniversary of my mom's death. And that was part of the reason I wanted to go on the hike that day, was just to get out and in nature and, maybe be able to connect with her. And so I did feel a little bad that I hadn't delivered the message right on the spot, because I didn't want to get out of my car like a crazy person spouting gibberish. But imagine if I had just gotten out and said, hey, I have this message for you, and it's this, and it would have been amazing. So the moja droga ja cię kocham was interesting because that's Polish, and it is, a Polish line or phrase that means basically, I love you so much. But it's also a line in a Bobby Vinton song called Melody of Love. And I am about half Polish, and I grew up in a Polish neighborhood, the Slavic village in Cleveland, until I was 10. And my family had lived there for generations before that. And so I knew of that phrase. I mean, immediately, moja droga ja cię kocham means that I love you so, more than you'll ever know. And anyway, so I thought it was interesting that was part of the message, and that I would know that. And of course, he knew that. And it seemed almost like somehow his mom picked me to send a message through me, even though I wasn't a medium at the time, because she knew I was somehow she knew I was going to meet her son on the anniversary of her death. She knew he was sad and wanting to communicate with her. And she somehow seemed to pick out of my mind that I knew moja droga ja cię kocham. And then the interesting thing about the Dolores was the way she showed me the Dolores Street. At first, I had no idea why that was a visual that would be in my mind. And it was a long time later, months, maybe more than a year later, I was driving down another street in the city where I lived in Florida that I drove down all the time. And as I commonly do, I read all the street signs as I'm passing the side streets of the residential streets, just so you're familiar with where the streets are. And I noticed that one of those streets, it's a long street, so there are a lot of streets there. One of the many streets is Dolores Street, and that's exactly what I had seen. And so I thought that was interesting as well. So anyway, it turned out I wasn't going crazy. At least I no longer feel I was, because I'm not here to convince anyone of anything. I understand. I used to be of the mindset that if it's not solid, real, concrete, I can touch it. It's, it's too abstract to be considered. But now my viewpoint about that is it's real because it's happening to me. So I understand that for people that this is not a part of their experience, it's not real to them. So again, I have no interest in trying to convince anyone, but I have, since that first experience, had a number of consultations that I've done for people, and they can be really, really healing for people. They can be fun. It's been a great experience for me, and it's been a good experience for everyone for whom I've ever done a consultation. And so that is the story of how I found out that I was a medium. And so that's my first video. And I think there's a way to like it. I think there's a way to subscribe. And, I'm also including my email address, which is bernardjosephmedium@gmail.com. That's my name. Everyone calls me Bo because my name is Bernard Joseph. So, but that is my real name is Bernard Joseph. So that's my email address, bernardjosephmedium@gmail.com. And Bernard Joseph is my channel here on YouTube. And thanks for watching.